Hello, and welcome to the I've Seen Everything Reaction Wrap-Up podcast. Here is where I share my thoughts, reactions, and review for my latest reaction videos. To find these full reaction videos, please search for @SeenEverything over on YouTube, or check the description of this podcast for more information. Also, please remember to rate and comment on this episode, and follow the podcast so you can see when I'm putting out new wrap-ups. And now, on to my latest wrap-up for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I have heard people talk about not liking this movie, especially people who know a lot about the Frankenstein story. I think that anybody who knows about this story, and again, I had some things that were gaps in my knowledge, and it's been a while since I've read it. I should probably go back and read it again. But I still like what they did here. I don't think there has ever been a true adaptation of the Frankenstein story. And please, if you are out there, you are someone who is knowledgeable of the story, you let me know if I am wrong about that. Because this is one of the few I have at least a little knowledge about. I didn't make it through all of it, but back during COVID, we were all kind of coming up with things to occupy our time, let's say. One of the ones I came up with was I made as complete a list as I could of every single adaptation of the Dracula story and every single adaptation of the Frankenstein story. And I need to go back to those lists because there are still some I didn't make it to. But I made it through a large number of adaptations of both. And the Frankenstein story, as told, as I talked about throughout the reaction, is a story of abandonment. It is a story of hubris. It is a story of arrogance. It is a story of a man who's basically a child, meaning he's a college-age person. He hasn't really done anything or had any responsibility in his life. He's never had to care for somebody. He's been born into privilege, and he's never had to care for a child or care for someone who required his care in order to live. It was simply to prove his own greatness that he came up with this idea of reanimating dead tissue, reanimating a dead body, even one that he had to piece together in order to make it work, just to show that he could, just to show how incredible he was. Again, we see this in lots of corners of the scientific world, of lots of the tech world, all kinds of things. People doing things just because they can. It's like, well, it's wonderful if you're doing something that can actually be of help, that you're not doing it just for your own ego. But if you're doing things that maybe aren't even that great an idea just because you can, that can be problematic. But then we also have the question of, if you create life, however you create that life, you have a responsibility to that life. You are the reason it's here. You have a responsibility to care for it, to give it a chance in the world. Most of the time, this is parents and children, but in any respect. And I think that's something that when you have life that would be created in a non-traditional way, people are like, well, that's not really life. It's like, no, if something can think and feel and ponder its existence and dream and desire freedom and desire all these other kinds of things that we can, that's life, or that's intelligent life. The problem with the Frankenstein story, the way it's been told for so long, especially the way it was told in early adaptations, even the Universal adaptation, it's not that Boris Karloff's Frankenstein's monster, as it was referred to there, was not in its own way a sympathetic character, but they focus so much on Victor, and they focus so much on the grand spectacle of it all, that the deeper emotional parts of the abandonment and all the rest of it of this character got lost or got played way down. They wanted a, fun popcorn monster movie. And in those situations, your story has to be very simple. There's a hero, there's a villain, and, the villain has to lose in the end. And the easy way back in those days in particular was to make the villains the quote-unquote monsters. They did put some nuance in there. This story came inspired by Mary Shelley's actual life. You had a situation in here in which a mother died in childbirth. Victor's mother died in childbirth, also played by Mia Goth. But the child that was the product of that birth, where the mother died, was not hated and thrown aside. In this case, Victor was, even though his birth was not associated with that. In Mary Shelley's life, it was the other way around. Her birth caused the death of her mother. Her father hated her entire life, did not care for her properly, went on and married someone else. I believe they had other children. And she always felt like an outsider in her own family. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on the history of Mary Shelley. That's my memory of what I learned about her. It was that dynamic that inspired the tragedy and the abandonment of the creature in Frankenstein. Again, even in this, him continually referring to the creature as it, or that thing, or something other than human. refused to even see it as life, or see him as life. And not until the end did we finally get that. I don't remember that from anywhere else. And I've seen a lot of Frankenstein adaptations, and I've read the story, although it's been a while. From my recollection of the story, and there is a blank spot here because I don't remember how in the original story we get the creature's perspective. The whole story of him at the farmhouse and the old man and all that stuff, Victor would not have been there for that, so I don't know how that would have been in his journal. So I'm going to have to go back and look to see how we have that. You can let me know in the comments how that ended up in the actual structure of the original story. But the original story is told from Victor's journal. They find him on the ice. I don't even know if he ever regains consciousness. I'm pretty sure he's delirious most of the time, and it's just the captain reading it. And the creature does not show up until the very end. But by the very end, the captain knows who the creature is from having read the story, and he shows up to claim Victor's body. It's also different in this that he's able to regenerate. I don't remember any other situation in which the creature was able to regenerate. Again, I remember the creature being very durable, being shot and harmed and all this kind of stuff, but his body was more resilient to damage than a traditional human body would be. And the thing that I was saying at the end that I'm like, I don't care. I can understand that people that love the Frankenstein story are upset about this. I don't care. We finally got this in one version of this. And that was all Guillermo del Toro's decision there, I'm sure. We don't get resolution in the Frankenstein story, at least not in most of them. I don't think we ever got this turn from the creators, from the Victor Frankenstein characters of, I recognize you as my son. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did this to you. I can't believe this is where we've ended up all because of me. Please forgive me. And I guess Guillermo del Toro decided for once in this story, he wanted some resolution. He wanted, at least at that last moment of Victor's life, for him to realize the error of his ways and to give the creature, who is going to exist into perpetuity as far as we know, at least for that creature to have peace with his father before his father's death, which was Victor giving the creature something that his own father never gave him. There's a powerful message in that. Is this the most faithful telling of the Frankenstein story? No. Is there a faithful telling of the Frankenstein story out there? Not that I'm aware of. If there is, please tell me. Please tell me in the comments, what is the most faithful telling of that story you've seen adapted to screen? Because I have not seen one that's a perfect adaptation of it, which is how it usually goes with adaptations. They change something. So is this a perfect adaptation of that? No. But did I enjoy this? Very much so. I enjoy Guillermo del Toro's movies. I enjoy his version of this story. I think that it is true to the original story in a lot of important ways. I think it does diverge in some others. I'm not saying I loved every choice he made, but if I'm looking at this in the scope of Frankenstein stories, this is one of probably my favorite adaptations of this story. One of my favorite film adaptations of this story that I've seen. So again, disagree with me. Tell me what yours are. Tell me why you didn't like this one. Tell me which ones are better. Sincerely, tell me if you've seen a actual true adaptation of the book where they really followed it, because I would be interested to know that. But that's it for me. I appreciate you being here to watch this movie with me, and I will see you on the next video. Take care. Thanks so much for listening to the I've Seen Everything reaction wrap-up. Again, to find these full reaction videos, please search for @SeenEverything over on YouTube or check the description of this podcast for more information. Also, please remember to rate and comment on this episode and follow the podcast so you can see when I'm putting out new wrap-ups. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll meet you here for the next episode.